All right, you guys, the best time of year is here. It's May, and it's time to set up our new bows. Obviously, you guys have probably heard about the new XTS tuning system from Hoyt, and we're gonna put it to the test today. So what that is through basically limb deflection and changing the seating depth of those limbs at the pockets, you can tune your bow without needing a press. So you'll still need a press for changing timing and things like that if you want to change your strings, but we're going to kind of show you how you can paper tune your bow today without a press and go through it. So I haven't actually looked at this bow yet. I forgot what color I got, but I know I got the AX-3 33 and 80 pounds. So here she is. What color is that?
Looks like a sand.
Sandstorm? That's right. So we got Sandstorm, guys. So the geometry between the bows and the cams themselves remain the same. So between the RX-9 and the RX-10 and the AX-2 and the AX-3, the riser, the cams, the mod system they're using is all the same. And that platform is awesome. I'm glad they actually kept it the same because last year was my favorite aiming and shooting hunting bow I've ever had. So the one thing they changed is this XTS tuning system right here. This is the part that everyone's talking about. That's where these limbs actually seat into the riser, and you can adjust the depth on each limb. So you have 4 different adjustments going 2 different directions. So, and with that, we can adjust cam lean. So basically, guys, how that works is you have it's a split limb system, obviously. And so if you're changing the seating depth on this side, say my elbow's the limb pocket side. When you drive it in, it brings the top of that limb up. And then with the other limb staying at the same spot, what that's going to do is actually cant the cam each way. And so you can control it basically 4 different ways by raising or lowering the limb pocket depth. And then you're actually adjusting your cam lean with that. And then we're going to do a whole series of bow tuning videos, guys. So I'm going to do one here because we're fortunate enough to have everything you need to get a bow set up here. And then Trent or Steve's actually going to go to the bow rack and get one set up too. And that's the other thing I will say, like as bows get to where you need less and less help from pro shops, still support your pro shops. You have to buy the bows through them, get your equipment through them. Pro shops are what got the archery industry and the hunting industry to where it is today, to where it is accessible for everyone. So do not forget about them now because you think, oh, I don't need a bow press to tune my bow. You're still gonna need to adjust your timing and all these things like that, and please do not forget about your local pro shops. But this knowledge is good to have if you're in a pickle in the middle of the woods somewhere, and you just need to fix your stuff. So the first thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna get this thing in the vise. Guys, this is the Hoyt Integrate MX2 rest. It's a cable-driven rest, which I generally prefer for hunting. Reason being is there's just less string outside of the bow, right? So on a limb driven, you have a cable going from, or a string going from here all the way to your bottom limb, right? And so from here to here, you have something that can get caught on brush. And the timing of that string is very important, right? And we hunt the Oregon coast for the majority of our season, so there's a lot of brush. And so the longer I have that string exposed, the more it can get yanked on, weaken the springs, loosen the connection, whatever, whereas a cable driven, it's gonna go from here to your down cable right here, and it's just a lot less that can go wrong just from the bow getting beat up. So that's pretty much the only reason. I know limb drivens can be a little bit more precise. They stay up for longer, which is what makes a fall away rest more accurate, as the longer it stays up and then falls out quickly, whereas a cable driven falls away quicker. But this is, for me, it's just gonna have less opportunity to fail when we're in the field. For as long as bows have been around, you center on the burger holes. The burger holes are these 2 machined holes right here, or 1 machined hole now on a lot of them, on the inside and outside of the riser, but they actually have a plug on this side and a little bit more accurate mark now, as they just have a center shot mark on the outside of these Hoyt risers. So pretty much most of the bows have these now on the front and back, which again are awesome. But as you guys will see, with this, you do lose adjustment, and not in up or down or left to right. All of that's still fine, but in the actual like depth. And so what I'm going to go through later, I don't think we're going to do it in this video, but I'm going to do a torque tuning video. And what that is the distance, the relation between your rest and your sight can actually change the forgiveness of your bow. And so I like to have one of these that moves. So if I'm going to use a Picatinny rail, Rest, I want to have a sight on a dovetail that I can move in and out towards your target or towards you. And then same goes for this. If I'm going to have a Picatinny rail sight, then I want to have a rest that can move in and out. And I would rather do it with my sight than the rest, because you have a lot more adjustment in a sight with a dovetail. So something I also like about these integrate rests is they just have the thumb tab here, so you can lock them up. And it's just nice to have to find your center shot and all those things. And I generally, like especially on these Hoyts, like to run my knocking point a little high. So now, if you do that, you're gonna have to adjust everything, right? Your rest needs to move up. You're gonna have to change your timing, right? Because you're not pulling from middle of strings. And if you tune everything right, it doesn't make a difference, but what that does for me is it aims a little bit better. And that's just how I end up liking it. It seems to pull on the top cam a little bit more if my knocking point's up. And I have problems with like leaking pressure and getting dips in my aim, that pin just bobbing out. And when I've run that knocking point just like a 16th to an 8th high, it just has a little bit more pressure on that top cam, and it just pulls that bottom of the bow up, and it just sits really, really well for me. And you can't eyeball this, but it's nice to just have a bow square. So we're gonna come in. Chase, you wanna come in on this side? So now this bottom line is square, right? And you have your 0 line right here. So what most people are doing is you can look on the back side, those indicator lines are putting like middle arrow, middle of burger hole. And I just come a little bit above that. Like I was telling you guys, I'm going to end up playing with this a lot more. It's just like hours long process of just moving it to see where it aims the best until it gets worse. But for right now, I'm basically just going to put bottom of arrow, middle of burger hole. So just a touch high. And now I'm gonna use a silver Sharpie. Silver Sharpie is really important because it shows up on any bowstring color. So now I have this silver Sharpie mark at the bottom of where I want my arrow to be. Guys, is really important. So if you're going into a pro shop and you're like, I haven't got arrows built yet, but I want to get my bow set up, at least make sure that you are using the components you're going to be using when you build your bow. And what I mean by that is all nocks have slightly different geometry. So use the nocks that you're going to use. If you're going to use pin nocks, use those. If you're going to use Easton nocks and you know which arrow you're going to be using, use them. Because nocks have different geometry and different heights. You want your D-loop to be perfectly formed with just enough space as it needs, not too much slop. And what I mean by that is just enough room to where that when that string angle changes and goes from flat to a V, that nock is not getting pinched and pulled up. And it's not too much room to where that nock's just kind of hanging loose and there's slop. Any sort of slop is not good, but pinch is also not good, and we're just trying to find that perfect middle ground. So nock fit should it should click on there and want to slide a little bit up and down. It should be able to slide a little freely. And then if you just do this, it should come off, right? Just pull your string back an inch and flick it, that nock should come off freely. If it's not coming off with that, it's too tight. Everyone's a little bit different on this, but when it's too thin and you get it too tight, a lot of times it'll separate that serving, which may not be a big deal, but it's just creating a weak point in that center serving to where it can spread out over time. I don't really like that, even if it's just cosmetic. I'm not a huge fan, so I'm gonna cut 2 strands to tie in that nock point. Some people don't tie in a nock point. Some people tie in a bottom and a top with equal amounts of wraps. I like to do 4 wraps on the bottom and 2 wraps on the top for this nock point, and it seems to work fine for me. Wrap it around and pull down until it's at the perfect level. And what you want to do when you're tying these nock points is you got to have a little bit extra room. And if you look super close, you can actually see the serving wraps around that string. You want about 2 serving wraps above the top of your nock to be where this serving is tied. So if you guys can see, this is where I want my nock to sit, and that's how much room I want between this top nock set I'm going to tie and the top of the nock. There's just barely like 2 wraps of serving. The silver Sharpie mark was my bottom, so if the nock floats all the way up, you can see that same amount of space on that silver Sharpie mark, and I slide it down to where I'm going to want that nock to sit. There's just that much room. So guys, as I'm tying this in, something that helps is I'll actually just breaking the 4th wall right now. I'll take a nock out of one of the same nocks I'm going to end up shooting. and just put it on the string. It's going to be a lot less likely to slide without that weight of that arrow. And as I'm tightening that knot, I'll kind of press it against it so it tightens square. And then also just to check my fit. So, and another little thing, so as we talked about knock pinch, there's a way to test that, and a draw board. So, and if you don't have a draw board, you don't have to buy a super expensive one. I actually made one. I bought a boat trailer winch on Amazon for, I think it was $42, and put paracord on it, and you guys will see that later. I'm using that to check timing. But put that bow in that draw board, especially if it's a horizontal one, and put your knock without an arrow on the string. And then when you get it back to full draw, if that tip of that knock is raising, you have knock pinch. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Just a double overhand knot basically wrapped around the back, so it has 2 layers of serving up and down. And this bottom I'll do 3 to 4. With this thicker serving, I'll probably only do 3. Okay, when do I need new strings? Is it when they're dry? Is it when, like, what's the life of strings? You're gonna notice strings are going out on you when your marks are changing. And by your marks, I mean your sight tape. If you're like, you feel like you're changing stuff, one day your sight tape's on, a week later it's off, and you didn't change literally anything else, your strings are probably going on you. If your timing's going consistently, and if you're at the point where you can feel your timing feel a little different, if your back wall feels a little bit different, all of those things, guys, that's your strings are starting to stretch on you. They are meant to be used. So it's not a bad thing. It means you're shooting a lot, and they've worn the life out of them. All right, guys, on these D-loops, another thing I've learned from getting pretty deep into target archery the last few years is a softer D-loop material. This is BCY number 23, I believe. A lot of pro shops have been going to it, and it's just way more flexible. So it's gonna be slightly harder, to be honest, to like get a good burr at the end for those D-loops, but it's way more flexible. So as you're twisting on your release, if your anchor is slightly different, it's not gonna actually be moving that string different ways. And that's just from having this material more pliable, right? So it may be harder to hook onto because it's not as rigid, right? But when you're hooked onto it with your release, if you're twisting, it's not gonna actually change the contact points to your string and affect your shot. So now some people like to pre-cut this a certain length. I will change the length of my D-loop depending on the release I'm using and what I'm experiencing. You can actually use it to just kind of micro adjust your draw length as well. So I don't do that. I'm gonna put my knock in just to make sure I'm not moving stuff as I do it. And just pull this top one real tight. Now again, the other thing that'll help with a little bit of forgiveness, you're gonna lose a little bit of draw length out of it, because the overall length stays the same as I go a little bit longer on a D-loop. The sweet spot I have kind of found is right at like 7/8, which I know is pretty long, but you're also gonna have more room in here to hook onto your D-loop, right? So the longer this is, the more forgiving it's gonna be, right? Because any influx you're putting on this material is further away from the string, and it has less basically leverage to move the string left or right, right? Whereas if it's right here with a stiffer material, any twist you do is gonna pull on those knots and wanna cant your string certain ways. And then now I'll just stretch it with pliers. I just use needle nose. I'll come in here, and this is how I'm gonna find the depth I want. I'm just gonna come in and pull these pliers apart until it's at the depth I like, which on a hunting bow is a little bit less than a target bow, but it's still generally a little bit longer than your traditional D-loop length. So from the top of the string to inside D-loop is just about 3/4. So now what I'll do is, even though this is tight, I don't want to burr it up right next to the string because I don't like having to heat it that much right next to my serving. So I have my length cut now. Now I'm going to pull it off. I have it fluffed up to right where I know I'm going to like it. Now I'll hold those pliers against it and burn it down to that because I know that that's my end point.
Put your hand behind it. Yeah.
When the bow is at rest, this is the amount of knock movement I want. Just 1 or 2 servings up and down, right? Now again, some people put an arrow level on right here. You definitely can do that. I just eyeball it because I know I'm going to end up having to move it up or down based on what my paper's doing anyways. So I just eyeball it, see if it's level going across those burger holes or that riser. Now with this integrate rest, it's pretty easy. Just loosen the set screw. And now we're just have a dial on top and we move it up. Super simple. Hoyt, when they made this rest with QAD, did a really good job, honestly. It has everything you need. The only thing it doesn't have is that in and out adjustment, which again, as long as you have that in your sight, you can still torque tune. So I'm gonna adjust the draw length. So you get a mod that is set in your draw length range, right? So I think they come with either 3/4 inch or an inch of adjustment on each mod. So this one's like a 27 1/4, I believe, to 28. And I generally run in that 27 1/2 range. So on this one, I'm going to set it 27 1/2, and these mods actually have 1/4 inch adjustments, which is super cool here. And if you don't know where it's at, what's really cool is, so these aren't numbers like, oh, 27 1/2, 27 3/4, but what there is there's a little QR code right here on the inside of the limb. If you are doing this for the first time or adjusting it at home, and you can open this up, and it is Hoyt's draw length chart. Click my bow, Alpha AX-3 33. This is the draw length chart. So it'll tell you actually what corresponding letter you want to go to. So I'm going to start at 27 1/2, which is the capital H, and this is the number 2 mod. So the number 2 mod goes from 27 1/4 to 28. And then with the little other things, you can go maybe a 1/4 below that or a 1/4 over that with, you know, twisting strings and cables or untwisting strings and cables. But so for 27 1/2, it's this capital H. These do come factory Loctited, so you want to make sure that you do not strip this right out the gate. And I'm speaking from experience. I've had to drill these out, which is a very precise operation, and it's not fun. So luckily this one's not too tight. And as you can see, wherever that last Allen is on that mark is what your draw length's on. And there's also a little indicator right here. This is the capital G, right? And we need to go to the capital H, is that 27 1/2. Okay, now I'm just gonna rotate this mod till that indicator, you gotta pick it up a little bit, is that capital H, and then you'll have corresponding holes. So this top one, you know, come look at this. So this indicator right here is at capital H. This top one's going to be in the same hole, but now you'll have a corresponding hole for this capital H right here. There is adjustable let off on these bows with the same mod, which is really cool. A lot of times in the past you had to get a different mod, or with other bow companies you have to get a different mod for a different let off. Hoyt makes everything pretty adjustable and user friendly. So what this comes at is 85% out of the box. 85% is the highest amount of let off, and then it drops down to 75%. And what you can actually do is flip these draw stops, another little secret, and get halves. So you can get, like, I think it's like 77 1/2, 82 1/2, things like that. So that is cool. But what I like to do is run the lowest amount of let off. Now I don't know, because this is an 80-pound bow. I've never actually hunted with an 80-pound bow, but I wanted to try it this year. These cams, these HBX cams, draw so smooth that I'm not worried about it. But I have a short draw length. Like I said, mine's 27 1/2, and I'd like to be able to shoot a slightly heavier arrow with a little bit more speed. That's why I went with the 80-pound. And so I don't know what I'm going to like. Usually I like the lowest amount of let off. Basically, the more tension that's on that string at full draw, the harder it is to mess it up, right? And that's because when that string's all the way back and it's at 85% let off, a lot of times you're only holding like 10 to 15 pounds at full draw, and that means that string is easier to move left or right. Like if I'm at full draw like this, that string's easier to bend this way or that way. So if you're putting a lot of face into the bow or doing weird things with your hand, it can move that string a lot. And basically, the more inconsistent your shot is, the more variance you're going to see now in your groups, especially left and right, because you're putting a lot of pressure on that string. So especially if you anchor deep, kind of like I do, and you really get into it, you don't want to do that, but you just want to have the most weight on that string as possible while it's still comfortable to hold, so that you're not getting weird variances in your groups. So now I'm gonna leave this at 85% for now. And if I'm getting, when I'm getting way into my group tuning and adjusting my rest for groups, if I'm still getting weird lefts and rights, what I'm gonna do is recheck these draw stops, and I'm gonna go down to 80 or 75% and see if that shrinks my groups this way. I'm gonna leave it at 85, and if it's not a problem, I'm gonna leave it. Again, because this is an 80-pound bow, so there's still gonna be, you know, that percentage is then less taken off, right? Because it is a higher poundage bow. Another little thing I've done, if you like a slightly harder back wall, is this has a little rubber stop right here. If you take this draw stop all the way off, you can punch that rubber stop out, and then it's just metal on string. It's not going to chew it up or anything, I promise. And it's just going to be a slightly less soft feel at that back wall. If you are at a pro shop and they set your draw length, set the timing, everything's looking good, but it just maybe doesn't feel right, or you don't know what right's supposed to feel like, ask them to adjust your draw length slightly. It's not a big deal. They're there to help, and they want you to have a comfortable experience. Like something Wayne always says is like comfort equals accuracy, right? And I'm talking about Wayne at the bow rack in Springfield, someone we go to all the time. So don't be afraid to ask them to change something a little bit. If you want to adjust your draw length, you have one of these Hoyts, you want to adjust it by a 1/4 inch at a time to figure out what you really prefer, then do it, and don't be afraid to do that. It's not a big deal. Don't feel bad if you're someone like me who doesn't like asking for things or feels like you're going to inconvenience people. Don't. That's what they're there for, and they want you to have fun. They want you to be as accurate as possible. They're invested in your success. So if something feels a little bit wrong, you want to change something, don't be afraid to ask them. In the archery world, people have a lot of variance and opinions on things that do and don't matter. That's okay, but just don't be afraid to try stuff or ask people around you if they've tried stuff, and try to figure out how you can get that bow perfect for you. This is the Power Green press from Last Chance Archery. It's a pretty awesome press. It's super user friendly. You can just screw it down onto any workbench, and I've been really impressed with it. So there will be a little string splitter here in your string. Reason being, if you're not running a two-colored stranded string, so meaning it's all one color, it can be super easy to lose that middle. And you might think it doesn't matter, like, oh, you're just in the middle of your string. No, these strings are counted. There's a certain number of strands, different string manufacturers use different things, and you need to split that evenly. So it's really important, the manufacturer will send, whether it's a string manufacturer or a bow, a center point in these strings, and you need to make sure you always keep something there to where you're not losing that. Now on that topic, it's not a huge deal, but if you are someone like myself who wants to give yourself any advantage you can, I would recommend shooting a single colored set of strings. You might be asking, why does that matter? Basically, all these materials are very sensitive. And so if you're running two different colors, they went through a different dye process, and they will have slightly different like tensile strengths, basically. One may stretch slightly different than the other one based on the color. It may sound crazy, but it's true. And when you're dealing with something like this, and if you have an uneven pull on your strings, it can be weird. And people have obviously shot dual colored strings for a reason, but if you look at any target archer who makes their living off of shooting arrows in the same spot out of a bow every single time, and look at their bow, I promise you, relatively none of them will have multicolored strings. And that is not a coincidence. So now I'm not going to tie my peep in all the way. All I'm gonna do is tie it in just enough to where it doesn't fly out of the string and hit the riser and bounce back and hit me in the eye, so that I can adjust it. But if you want to learn how to tie in a peep, there's a bunch of people out there that make awesome videos with that information, and go check them out. Easily the most overlooked part of accuracy and inconsistency, play with it. Before your peep's all the way tied in, move it up and a 1/16 of an inch, a 32nd of an inch, down a 32nd. It is going to change where your arrow hits drastically. But then once you find that perfect height, you need to make sure that that thing is tied in and it cannot budge. Because if that peep is moving slowly as you're shooting, you are going to get drastically different impact points with your arrows. Okay, now this is that draw press that I built. Like I said, it's a boat winch I bought on Amazon. It's kind of loud, but then I just took a big old fence post bracket actually and lagged it into the frame of this, and fingers crossed, so far it has not failed. But I just tied paracord and a carabiner to it with a safety. It goes around the D-loop. If it fails, it will explode on chase. So the cool thing about this is it actually does have little micro adjust clicks. Now I'm gonna come in and just slowly get to where, you might wanna come here, Chase. These are your draw stops here, right there, on the back side of this cam. And in hindsight, I should have flipped it the other way so you could see it better. And you have one on the bottom and the top, right? And where you can see is where these touch your cable is where that cam's actually gonna stop rotating, right? So you wanna make sure that these are in perfect sync so that both of these cam systems are locking out at the exact same point. So you have really even pull and pressure all the way through your shot, if that makes sense. You want to be starting from the same point and ending at the same point. So you can see right here close, this one is already touching, if not just barely off, right? That's touching. And this top one is probably, I don't know, a 30-second out. So it's really close, but now I need to go in and twist some cables and get those lined up. Guys, if you're scared to adjust things on your bow, I get it. Take pictures of everything where the strings go, just like if you're working on a truck for the first time and you're not well versed in it. And if you, as long as everything's going back where it's supposed to, you're gonna be fine. So if you sign up for a local club, like if you're in Western Oregon, Cascadian Bowman's a great one. They're just outside of Eugene. And if you remember, there's presses, there's draw boards, scales, everything that you need actually there to work on your bow, as well as a range. And if you're like, oh, I don't know which cable does this or which cable does that, and it can be very confusing at first, take one off and not take it off all the way, but take the end off and twist it a couple times. And if you go the wrong direction, you went the wrong direction. That's fine. Just make your adjustment, and this is gonna be how you learn. Like when I first built this. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. We're close. They're both hitting right now, but again, I'm just gonna come off just a touch. I wanna make sure that they're, okay, so we're about perfect right here. Is what we can get with string twists, basically. There's little other things we can do to get the timing perfect, but it's about perfect. Chase, if you come real close here, you wanna see where they're both hitting, but then I come a little bit off of it and wanna see the same amount of space between the two. So right here we got about, I don't know, a 16th, and right here we have maybe just a touch less. And so I can maybe take half a twist out, but then I might go too far the other way. So we're just gonna start right here. So now we're gonna attach this rest cable and get it timed out for what we need right now. Put a sight on and start shooting this thing. So when we're attaching this rest cable, guys, this goes to the down cable. That's this one here that's served slightly higher, I believe. But if you are unsure which cable is the down cable, it's the cable that goes down as you draw back. So if you are worried about it, just slightly draw back and you can see which one's going down. And it's this one right here. So there's a ton of different ways to tie this cable in. QAD actually sends an attachment. It's like a clamp. It works pretty good, but it can fail because it's mechanical. Now, position-wise, what I like to do is always go right up to where this serving ends, right? So there's a difference in material right here. You have your twisted strands, and then this part that's served as it goes through your roller guard when you draw back. Now, if I go below, all of the tension on this is gonna be wanting to slide up. Your rest cable is always gonna wanna slide up. So you wanna butt up against something that makes it harder to do that. So whether you're using the clamp or a different way is you can actually split, you can put this string in between that string. So again, put it in the press, split those, count strands, and make sure you're in the middle, and then tie it in that way, which is probably what I'll eventually be doing, just so there's absolutely zero chance that this thing can move on me. Well, it's kind of cool actually when you get one of these QAD integrate rests is you get a little knife, a little keychain knife with it. And I lost my last one in the Memphis airport. I'll roll the clip of TSA finding this in my bag. We gotta stop.
Look at that.
A whole knife.
She got a new knife.
You're going to jail.
That's on me.
I'm not gonna lie, it's hard to get off. Like, it's easy, but it's hard.
Yeah, that's why I didn't take it off.
I guess I'll just keep your whole thing.
Yeah. Again, these strings are one color, which is what I like, but you're gonna slide this clamp up once it's started to where it hits that bottom serving right there. I'm gonna bolt this side on, get my stabilizers on, and then we're gonna draw it back and get the peep height set and start shooting this thing and getting it tuned. So this is the Hoyt SL sidebar mount. It's pretty cool. Most of these bows come with multiple machine holes now for stabilizers, which is cool. With the same place you mount your Go sticks to, you can actually mount a stabilizer to. So basically for no added weight, you can get that stabilizer out another, I think it's like 3 inches out further, and it also just changes balance points. So again, that is stuff, guys, that you do not have to go anywhere for. If you can shoot at your house, which I guarantee you can, most people can, you can mess with all that stuff at home. It also has a quick disconnect, so if you're putting your bow in your bow bag, you can take this sidebar off very quickly. It does not change the position or anything like that. So all of these things can change your grip pressures. Having your stabilizers in different points, your knock height, your peep height, all of those things, you may think it's not actually changing anything mechanically on the bow, but it's changing the way that you're holding and firing the bow, which is what changes your tune. So play with all these things to get it to where you are just aiming that thing phenomenally, and then go back and readjust. But center shot is the distance between the center of your arrow and the inside of your riser. So with Hoyt bows, I think all bows, it's 13/16, which if you have dial calipers is 0.8125 of an inch. And if you don't, that's okay. What you're wanting to do is just get it close, right? So these stabilizer threads are square, right? Like if you can count on one thing, it's that stabilizer from the manufacturer comes pretty square to your riser, meaning that it's at a perfect 90-degree angle and it's something to look off of. So you can just eyeball it, look down your arrow and down your stabilizer. If your arrow's running down the middle of your stabilizer, it's pretty close. But if you want to get it perfect, dial calipers, these are just a cheap pair. I have a nice pair as well here. So this one goes 0.81 of an inch is 13/16. And I have this set as well, 0.8125. Lock them down. Now I'm just measuring, and again, this is center of arrow, not the outside of the arrow. And I locked them in, I'm looking, so from the riser to the center of my arrow, I'm just a little bit inside. So I will loosen this up, move this rest to the left for my starting point, and then from there we're gonna get shooting and tuning once we get this sight on. The bow's level vertically. What I'm gonna do is I get this close so then I shoot it in. So once my bow's at a point where I like it, it's tuned, I like the way it's holding, all these things, I'm gonna actually shoot in, the axis is on my sight. So what that means is I'm not trusting what the level says, I'm trusting what the groups are doing. So what I'm gonna do is I'll go out to distances, and again, this is where like I won't cover in this video, but maybe we'll do it in some future videos if people wanna see it, is doing line tuning, French tuning, all these things, also how to shoot in your third axis so you don't have to put your bow in a hooter shooter, which is also the most reliable way to do it. So we'll put lines on target, shoot at different distances, and actually shoot that in on your bow to make sure that that sight is perfectly level for the way that you hold the bow. All right, guys, now I am going to just sit here until my peep height is perfect. So right off the bat, it was low. So this part, before you get everything tied in and rotated, you'll having to be doing some rotating. But initial thought is the bow draws pretty smooth. So I'm gonna come to my anchor, touch my nose, and then look. Peep still just a touch low. That is about perfect. So the reason I'm not shooting is because when I shoot, that peep may slide a little bit. So now I'm just gonna go in, mark it with silver Sharpie. I'm gonna go tie that peep in all the way. Okay, peep height's all set. Everything's all set and roughed in. Peep's rotated pretty close. And now we're just gonna draw it back and shoot it for the first time. Double check everything's connected as it should be. I will say for an 80-pound bow, it draws pretty smooth. And I think that draw length is gonna be about perfect. Now we're gonna set up the paper and see what it looks like. Now when I'm shooting through paper just to get a rough tune, I'm gonna shoot one arrow the entire time. And then later on, I'm gonna go through and kind of group tune my arrows. But for right now, I'm shooting one arrow, so I'm just getting consistent results. And I know if I can get that bow to tune for one arrow, I can get the rest. We might have got really lucky. I think we're super close, guys. We're real close. So we're just a tiny bit knock left and knock low. So the one thing you want to do is if you're having highs and lows, you always want to adjust those first. But I don't even think we're going to have enough left and right to where I'm going to want to adjust using the XTS tuning system, maybe just a touch. Because as I group tune, I'm going to be adjusting things again. But yeah, we're super close. So we're just a touch knock low. So we're just going to move the rest down just a skosh, and we should be right in there. Okay, we move the rest down just a touch. The reason you want to always do your up and downs first is because especially if you're knock low, you can be getting some contact, and that's going to induce lefts and rights. So you might not even have a left or right. It could literally just be the up and down that's messing you up. And in this case, I think that's exactly what we had. So I got that rest down just a touch. It was tuned. And we are pretty much there. So it might be just a little bit knock left still, but it's like pretty freaking perfect. So now guys, the bow's roughed in. And what I mean by that is a lot of times this is the last thing you do. And then you leave your pro shop, you go shoot broadheads, and you don't change anything again. Well, this is just literally a starting point for me. So I'll make videos after this and probably upload them on social, or let me know if you want like super tuning videos on YouTube. But I'm gonna do a bunch of things. I'm gonna group tune, I'm gonna shoot in the axes on my site, all these little things to where I'm just trying to get that bow to group really well with broadheads, whether it's mechanical or expandable or fixed blade broadheads. There's still a ton of little things I can do to make sure that this bow is grouping at every distance as good as possible. So this is my starting point. I'm gonna shoot these strings in, and then I'm gonna play with things for aim. I might move stuff to make sure it just aims perfect for me, but this is a phenomenal starting point. It's ready to go out and hunt if you want to. This is where most people leave it, but we like to take it a step further and just keep shooting this thing and getting it perfect for you. So you didn't even have to see with this video using the XTS system, but at this point, we wouldn't like taking our rest out of center shot. So if I have a left or a right tear, all we have to do instead of putting it in the press and switching out these spacers, which is kind of a pain, and you still can do that, they still have the spacers, all we're doing is just adjusting these limb pockets right here to take that tear out of it. So we had to do it with Trent's bow when he got his, we had to do it with Trevor's. These bows from Hoyt nowadays are pretty incredible. Again, play with those things, play with the way your stabilizers sit, how much weight's on them, the angles that they're at, play with your knocking point, find what aims well for you. This is aiming great for me, but again, I kind of had a pretty good idea of what I knew I was going to want. Back. Your holding weight is the weight that you're holding right now, and your draw weight is the peak weight that you reach. So 80 pounds and 11 pounds of holding weight. So on a hunting bow, I really like 11 to 12 pounds, and that's at that 85%, which feels pretty good. I might even take that down to 80, but that's where we're at. It's right out of the package, not adjusting anything, right at 80 pounds, which is spec. And yeah, so I'm excited to get this thing shooting, and we'll do some more tuning videos.